Sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship, what is it? It's the individual is the same as the company. An unincorporated business owned by a single individual that reports its income on Schedule C of the 1040 tax form. Some of the features we want to consider are sole proprietors are owned by one person. There may be some states that considers a married couple to be one person or one entity and can be considered still a sole proprietorship. But for the most part, a sole proprietorship is legally considered as one person can own it. Okay. The reasons why you would want to form a sole proprietorship, it's because you want to make money, you want to charge customers something, and you want to start your business. And it's really simple because oftentimes it takes little or even no paperwork to start up as a sole proprietor. The issue with liability, though, is people that start sole proprietorships are responsible for every business transaction they have. There's unlimited personal liability. So if somebody does a job for someone else and there's a contract dispute, that person can sue the sole proprietor, the owner, the individual, for everything, and they're responsible for all the damages. So often sole proprietors are financed through personal assets. People put their own money into their business, or they take credit card debt, or they take a loan. Profits flow directly to the owner. For taxation, the sole proprietor or the individual is responsible for self-employment tax and personal tax, and there is some federal income tax reporting. And those are the income and expenses that will be reported on the Schedule C and Schedule SE of the personal tax return. The paperwork is relatively simple, and as I've stated earlier, sometimes there is no paperwork. If somebody just starts a business, they can be running a sole proprietor even without forming or filing any types of paperwork. So the advantage of sole proprietorships, it's really inexpensive, it's easy to start, taxation is simple. The disadvantages are the unlimited liability, and it ends with the individual. So you can't sell your own person to another business or another entity. So it makes transferring a business from one entity to another very difficult. So the business technically has to end when the person stops doing that business. So how do you start a sole proprietorship? Simply, it's be a person, earn money. That's it, right? You just started. Officially, and this varies by the location you're in, you have to choose a business name. Oftentimes, the sole proprietor runs their business by the same name as the individual. So it might be Matthew is the name of the business. Somebody writes a check. Who do you want me to write it out to? The customer asks. And the owner would say, oh, just write it out to my name, right? If you want to call the business by a different name, then you can file a fictitious business name statement, typically with the county recorder. And this would allow you to operate your business under a different name. And that lets the city or the county or state know that you're operating a business that's not under your own name, it's under another one. And as long as they get that fictitious business statement, if the customer writes a check out or pays that specific entity's name, then you can take that to the bank and cash it. If you had not filed that fictitious business name statement and you brought a check to the bank and you asked them to cash it under that business name, they would likely not be able to cash it for you because the bank doesn't know who that entity is. But if you show them that statement, then the bank now recognizes that entity's name is conjoined with the individual. Next step is obtain any licensing permits and zoning. So this you'll need to check with local and state and federal, and we will discuss this more in Module 3. Another thing that would be helpful when starting a sole proprietorship is to obtain an employer identification number or EIN number. Oftentimes when you're working with a customer, they're going to want to see a contract and they're going to want to know who's the entity that they're dealing with. They might ask you for a statement of information. And here's where you would write who the company is, who the owner is, and what the company structure is. If you're operating as a sole proprietorship, you would be asked to provide your social security number. You often don't want your social security number to be a public, to be sending it out to all your customers. So obtaining an employee identification, obtaining an employer identification number from the federal government is a free form that you can file out, and you can get another number created that you can give that out instead. Next up are partnerships.